My name is Yana. In my work life, I go by my hyphenated name, Kane Esric. And in things that have to do with poetry, I still go with my original name, or actually the English pronunciation of my original name. I go with Yana Kane. As a child, I grew up in Russia, in what was then Soviet Union, and my name at the time was Yana Kane. And when it got spelled in English, it became Kane. My family and I came to the United States in 1979. We came as refugees from Soviet Union. And I finished high school here. I finished Princeton University with a degree in electrical engineering, computer science, and then got PhD at Cornell in statistics. And that's what I do for a living. I work as a statistician. So my work consists of analyzing data that has to do with internet service, quality of service. I build various predictive models that allow us to figure out where we are likely to have some portions of the network that may be overloaded. I have been working from home probably for the past more than 10 years. The reason I work from home is that I live in northern New Jersey. The main office of the company I'm in is in Philadelphia, and it just wouldn't be practical. So I'm quite used to it. So I have an office set up, and I have my habits of mind and of behavior set up. I mean, yes, sometimes when we're at the beginning of a project, it is a wonderful thing to be able to go and stand in front of a whiteboard and kind of brainstorm in person. But it is something that is possible to do largely online. For me, it was a strange feeling that suddenly the rest of the world has become like myself. I started writing poetry as a child. So when I was about 10, I got, strangely enough, very, very bad flu. And I was sick for like weeks, and I was given some medicine. I don't remember whether it was the medicine or I was so ill. I was like sleeping almost 3 entire days. And then finally I started getting better. And it turned out, first of all, that I grew. My parents marked my height on the doorpost, and it turned out that during that period I grew by some noticeable amount. But also, I remember that day I came out, it was winter, and my parents were outside. They had a rug hung on their bedroom wall, and it was like various colors of red and maroon. It was sort of this very warm red tones. And they were cleaning it with snow. And I came out, like when you sit for a long time, you're confined and it's winter and there's stale air inside. And suddenly I came out and there was this blinding light. It was a bright, snowy day. And I just saw my parents outside. They had this rug. They were sweeping snow on it with this broom that was made out of some sort of straw. The straw was golden and the air was so blue with the snow dust sparkling, and this rug was like buried under snow and then it reappearing. I just remember that there was this sense of this picture and the feeling of the cold air and the freshness of it just going through me like electric current. I came home and I felt this restlessness, and then just was walking back and forth, and suddenly I had a poem about winter and the rug. I was astonished, and my parents came home with the rug, and I told them this poem, and they were very surprised, and they wrote it down very respectfully. It just was like this water through the dam. The dam broke. I suddenly was like constantly composing poems. My parents sent my poems there was a newspaper for children in the city where we lived, and they had a poetry group led by a teacher who himself is a wonderful poet and screenplay writer. To this day, I am in touch with that teacher. I'm still friends with some of at the time it was girls, and now we are, very much not girls anymore. And that's how it started. When I came to the US and started learning English, I didn't have this group to interact with. But as I settled into this culture and this language, it kind of came back. And It was a gradual process. And now I write both in Russian and in English, and I translate poetry. It's a very interesting challenge, sometimes unsurmountable challenge. How do you convey in another language that partitions the world into words, into concepts very differently? How do you explain something which may be very, very simple and obvious in language A, and in language B, you have to present this long-winded construction? There are some words in every pair of languages. There are words that just don't translate. I feel that I'm very, very fortunate. I'm grateful that I have the art, the poetry, and the communication with the people that goes with it. I'm sheltering at home with my husband. My parents live very, very close, so we see them quite often. We practice social distancing with my parents. We cook foods for each other. I bring them something I cook. They set out for me. There's a little stoop in front of the garage, and we're like practicing barter. And so we kind of have this food exchange with my parents. And our daughter lives far away, but there is Zoom. And so I've been practicing all these things like connecting online, by phone. And I think that it is an interesting thing because it simultaneously disconnected us from each other in certain ways. I can't sit down and share a cup of tea with you. And when we're in the garden, in the community garden, I can't just hand my tool over to the person in the next plot. And at the same time, I think it really heightened our sense of connectedness, of having experiences that may be very, very different on the surface, but that underneath, when you realize that, okay, this is how different people, different cultures, different stages of life, different professions, different whatever, manage common human needs, among them for connection, and how we're finding new ways, technology-enabled ways, or some very ancient ways, like, reading a very old book. My husband and I restarted doing Tai Chi on a much more regular basis, both as a meditative thing, as a health thing, but also in some way as a way of connecting to our teacher who meant so much to us. So yeah, I've been thinking about it a lot. We are interacting with each other in ways that are very new to humanity. And yet the need to interact with each other. We come from different parts of the world. We are at different stages in life. And probably our childhoods, our journeys to this point, were probably different from each other. And yet we can connect on this common experiences. A lot of the time, we don't notice how interesting every so-called everyday individuals are, because we're barraged with people who, for whatever reason, good reason or very bad reason, varies, suddenly became, the spotlight is on them. And it can sometimes create a sense that those people who don't fall into spotlight are less interesting. I am very much looking forward to the outcome of this project, precisely because it asks people to talk about something that matters to them and that allows them to reveal their inner being and reveal ways in which we are wonderfully different, ways in which we are interconnected, and in which we are part of the same web, of the same species. We are all humans.